Hey guys, Joe Simons here, the host of the Salt Strong Fishing Podcast, and I have some huge news about our private insider club, in particular, the community. The top two questions we get about the community are one from people who aren't insider members yet that say, gosh, guys, I'd love to at least just test it out and get in the community and see what this is all about before I sign up. And from current insider members who want to refer to their friends are like, man, I got so-and-so I want to refer. And even though I know you guys have a 365-day, 100% money back guarantee, I'd love just to get them in the community, see how helpful it is so they can get an idea of the kind of people in there and the kind of help and the kind of value you have. And so we said, you know what, we'll do it. We'll create a free basic membership, like no credit card required. Just giving you our best, putting our best foot forward to let you go in there and see what it's all about. It is available right now. This is a limited time deal. We're going to let anyone who wants to get in, anyone who wants to see behind the scenes of our private community, you will not get access to the discounts and you not get access to some of our super, super exclusive stuff, but the entire community is wide open to you. We would love to have you in there. You can go learn more. It's saltstrong.com/pricing. Or just go to saltstrong.com and say join the club, and you'll now see a free version where you can get in there and basically have a free trial to see everything that you want in our private community. You're going to be blown away with how helpful people are and how many fishing reports are in there, how many new reports are going up every single hour. Can't wait to see you in there. That's www.saltstrong.com/pricing. Now, here's the episode.
It's fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. We got Luke Simons, like diamonds. We're talking about pre-trip planning, both some secrets and the mistakes. There's a wise man, actually one of our presidents, Abraham Lincoln. Remember what he said, Luke? If I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Now, either old Abe Lincoln was, maybe a little bit bad with his time, or maybe an exaggerator. But either way, he had one thing right. And it's talking about preparation, right? You know, his point was, hey, I'm going to spend all the time getting everything ready so that when I actually go do the thing, it's going to be as easy as possible. I'm going to be so prepared and I'm going to be able to knock it out quicker than someone that had a dull axe. And we've talked about this a lot, but yet so few people do this the right way. And once you do this the right way, everything changes. Right? Tony was one of the best examples, and Tony was kind of forced into this because he lives in Orlando, Florida, still to this day. But Tony, the guy who catches thousands of fish a year, lives in Orlando, Florida, not exactly the saltwater capital of the world. And so when he goes to, let's just say Titusville, for instance, or he goes anywhere in the lagoon, it's an hour, sometimes hour and a half, depending on traffic. He can't afford to get skunked. So that night before or that morning before, whenever, he is planning, he's doing the old Abe Lincoln, and he is pre-trip planning. And so we're going to go through maps and show the differences between some of the top 3 maps and talk about some of the mistakes that people make when it comes to pre-trip planning. Once again, this is one of the most important things. Just like that sharp axe, you get this right, and your time on the water becomes so much easier.
The good news is that it doesn't require 4 hours. So Abe Lincoln might have been a very slow at sharpening axes. Doing a pre-trip plan is not 4 hours. If it is, something really wrong is happening. It should be, after a little bit of time and practice, it should be like literally 5-10 minutes, and then you're done. So just know that. Don't hear those 4 hours. Oh my gosh, that's longer than I have to fish. Right? Usually 5-10 minutes is good. And
it shouldn't take you 6 hours to cut down a tree either. I mean, what is he doing? Redwoods over there? What the heck?
Yeah. As far as doing it, there's just a couple things that need to be done, and this is going to be just a quick crash course. And so I'll share the screen, and we have an entire course, and this is very important. And so we have an entire course on this called Finding Spots Mastery, or at least is just a section of that course. At least a lot of it's on fish behavior and knowing how fish are going to be moving based on the weather, the wind direction, the temperature change, even pressure changes. So we're not going to go into that level of detail. in this video, but just know that that's the stuff that needs to be accounted for. But as far as the key things, I'll show an example here in Tampa Bay. And this is just kind of the sequence of events that I believe a good pre-trip plan would entail. And number one is first of all, just picking the area that you're going to go to, right? So I had a recent trip over here on Tampa Bay, and just what you need to do is you need to find the tide charts, right? We need to know the current flow, and we need to know the wind speed and the wind direction throughout the day when we're fishing. So what I like is this Smart Fishing Tides platform. This is something that we designed custom for Insider Club members. You can use a variety of different things, like you can use the Weather Channel for the wind, and then use a different platform for the tides, and use this. This all has everything in one, which is why I like it.
Yeah,
so
you can get this at saltstrong.com/pricing if you're not a member. You can go there and get access to this today.
Yeah, so each of these heads is this is the brain, right? The brain power. These are all locations for the tides, the projected tides and current flow. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at Port Manatee, just as this example. And so what I want to do is I want to find a tide chart, right? I want to see the tide on a graphical chart like this. Obviously, you can get the old school printouts with all numbers. You can get the information. It's just much easier to consume and digest from these tide charts. Let's just say we're going to go fishing tomorrow. So we're going to have a pretty weak tide, given that there's only a couple peaks. We have the odd tides over here in the Gulf. But what we want to do, what I like to look for is, okay, the slope of the line. This is the tide height at every given point in this day. And the slope of the line, the steeper the slope, the more current flow is going to be happening at that time frame. In general, the more current flow that's happening, the more water movement is pushing bait and the weaker bait fish and shrimp, pushing it along for the predators to just eat more easily. So in general, the high current periods is going to have the best bite, right? All else being equal. So from this one chart, right, from this one screen, that took me about 2 seconds to get. If I wasn't chatting, I'd be able to see on a table for every hour of the day I'm fishing what the current flow is doing, right, based on the slope of the line. I can see if it's cloudy or not cloudy. I can see the wind direction and the wind speed, and I can see the temperatures, right? Nowhere else that I've seen has all this stuff in one layout. So to save time, use this. Otherwise, you can get the weather in one spot, the tides in another. And then this even has projections of the feeding levels based on the recent trends, and then you can even see satellite maps and all that stuff. But rule number one is know the trending weather, like know which way the wind's going, and then know if there's going to be clouds or not. So I would say those are just like the key things to think about as far as step number one. Just know the weather. So any questions there, Joe?
No, I want to talk about number two, because I don't know if we didn't pre-trip plan this podcast. But this is something that I've seen Peter Deeks do, and you do this well too. But Deeks, someone who's got many world records, he has people who hire him and pay him a ton of money. Deeks is not your typical guide who's charging $600 or $800 a day. I mean, some of these things that he does, I mean, it's crazy what people are doing because he's that good at putting people on state records, world records, personal bests, etc. And he goes out with a mindset where he starts with this, and then it's all about what fish am I targeting, right? So remember, when we go with Deeks, it's not like, oh, we're going to go for whatever's biting. He has the whole day mapped out. He's like, all right, we're going to focus on these two spots for gator trout at this time of day, because this is where we're going to be feeding. And then we're going to go way over here and we're going to go after the big snook, because they're all going to be in this one area. And then we're going to go target these big bull reds here in this deeper spot. And then we're going to go get tarpon here in the river, because they should be right here based on the trends. And so he's literally going to exact spots based on all this for exact species, and he's geared up for those exact species. I mean, it is the complete opposite of what most of us do, including Luke and I for years, right? What are you fishing for? Anything that'll bite, right? I mean, so many people have that mindset, and Deeks is like, he knows literally exactly what we're fishing for. Like if he caught a snook in that trout spot, he would be confused. He's like, this is my trout spot. It's crazy how well he does it. And many of the pros are like that. And yes, there's certainly areas where you could catch a slam, and those are great spots. We like to highlight those. But in terms of being laser focused on a specific species, you will do better in general. And your bycatch might be a redfish if you're going for a gator trout, right? That's the worst thing that could happen. It is crazy how many more fish you will catch when you're prepared and have a target species in mind. So I wanted to throw that out there because that was a big mistake I see so many people doing, including us.
Yeah, but either way, regardless of what you're going after, this is step one.
Yes.
So step one, because to know the tides, to know what the depth is going to be doing, I personally look at the depth a lot. Just knowing that some spots, especially if it's cold and the water's really low, that alone, if I just know those 2 data points, it's really cold, like down to 50 degrees in the morning, that's cold here for Central Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And the water's really low, I now can automatically weed out like 90% of the water, right? So regardless of what species I'm going after, but then I would know, okay, like I really like going after snook during that period or trout. But so step number one, know the weather, including wind speed and wind direction, especially knowing is it turning hot or turning cold. Very, very important. That's something, the wind and the temperature is something that I did not factor in for many, many years. And that cost me many terrible days on the water because I didn't plan properly. All right. So that being said, we've got the number one. Now it's about going to the maps and looking at some maps. Fortunately for this area, in most cases, Tampa Bay is relatively clear water. And so not only going to maps, but being comfortable with different maps, I would say would be step number two, is just get used to using satellite maps. There's a wealth of information online. I like everything. It's not always going to be awesome. There's multiple platforms, some better than others. There's never going to be one platform that's best. I'll get the question all the time, hey, what's better, Google or Bing or whatever? The answer is it depends. Right? It depends on when they updated their platform. They update in different times, and the pictures are better and worse. So right now, you can see I'm looking at this area. We're looking at Bishop Harbor and Tampa Bay. This is regular Google Maps, and it's not very clear. This is not the best picture, where it used to be good. So for a while, this map was really good. And look at the same thing from Bing, B-I-N-G, and this is much better, right? You can now see the bay a lot better. You can start seeing the holes. You can see the shallows. I'll zoom in just a little bit, where you can see a little bit more granular information, just powerful information as far as knowing where the deep zones are, where the shallows are, where the grass is. Again, pretty good. But then we go to Mapquest. Sorry about these ads. I don't know how to get them off. And with Mapquest is unique is as you move in, it'll show different layers of maps. And you can see as I get a little bit closer, I mean, check out how detailed this is. You can literally see.
Is there props cars in there? What is that?
I'm not sure what this is. That might be just something floating on the water. That's too big for props cars.
That's crazy.
But you can literally see patches of grass. You can see the deep pockets. So incredibly powerful information. And so had I only done Google Maps and had I only been comfortable with Google Maps, I wouldn't have seen this much granularity, right? I would have been stuck. I would have been stuck at this map here where even when I'm zooming in, I really can't see much, right? Like here, the little islands by the boat ramp, can't really see much at all. So step number two is just get used to different maps and just be ready to use them. And again, part of the Finding Spots Mastery course that we have for Inside Club members goes through all the map platforms, the pros and cons of each of them. Some of them let you go back in time, where you can use one platform and actually go back in time, which is awesome. But long story short, there's a lot more layers into this. Just wanted to go over the highlights.
One was it called Tuberculosis Bay?
Yeah, I was back there. Yes, I was back there earlier this week.
Jeez, hope you didn't drink the water.
Yeah, I got to paddle fast through that one.
That's a horrible name.
Yeah, don't want to catch anything back there.
Yeah, so if you guys are just listening here, one, there is a Tuberculosis Bay and near Bishop Harbor there. But two, I challenge you to watch this part or do it yourself. This is crazy. I mean, it's wild how different this one spot is. And we've done this a bunch. Luke kind of kicked this whole podcast off by saying we have a whole course on this because we could spend a half a day doing this, but we put a course together with we call it like ninja map reading skills. And that saves so much time. And we've had full-time guides who have gone through that Finding Spots course. That's one of the free courses you get as an insider member. It's kind of like the mandatory foundation. And we've had full-time guides that go through and like, holy smokes, I did not know half the stuff about, using satellite maps to find honey holes. It's really, really cool. And then of course we tied that in with the Insider Club with all the trends. And then you got the positioning and approach course, and then that inshore fishing 101 with Captain Peter Deeks is one of the pros on there. I mean, those 3 courses we hammered all the time. And in the members that go through that, Luke, they have such an edge, right? They're the ones that all of a sudden like, okay, it's finally clicking. That's like a testimonial we get all the time. Like, I'm finally feel like it's making sense. Like, I'm putting these pieces together and my confidence is up and I'm catching more fish. I'm finding more fish faster than ever before. So if you're already a member, awesome. Thank you guys so much. Go through those 3 courses. If you've done it, do it again. Like, they're so helpful. It's almost like a great business book that, you read every year. Same deal. Like, go through and do it once a year. It is game changing. And we're always adding to those as well. We do updates on occasion when needed. And so if it's been a couple of years, there's probably some pretty cool updates in those 3 courses. And if you're not a member, what the heck are you waiting on? Join us and our 27,000 plus other members today. Just that alone will be well worth the price of admission. I will end it there because I know you have more to share. But this part's so critical.
And I'll add, if you are a member, I would say just stop now and just go straight into the Finding Spots Mastery course and go to the map section, because it's going to it's a lot more streamlined, where there's each topic is just hit more, more quickly. It's all organized, so you can get way more bang for your time. So stop it right now, go to the Finding Spots Mastery course, and you'll see the module for reading the maps. And also, too, go down to the sections about fish's biology, too, because then once you know how to read the maps and then the fish's biology on how they move based on the changing temperatures, that's where the magic happens. And so that course is what puts it all together.
Yep. And if you're not if you are a member, stop right now and go through that. You don't have to listen to the rest of the podcast. If you're not a member, stop right now and go join the club. We'll wait. We'll wait right here.
We have fair time. Yeah. So.
Oh, we're supposed to wait.
Oh,
dude, dead silence. That
would be a good decision. It would definitely be wise.
You're not supposed to speak, Luke. We're waiting for you to join right now.
Yeah, and
okay, I can't do it. Radio silence is a killer.
That's painful. So, all right, So again, back to the maps, right? So with this map, say we choose one. I'll just use Bing, because we don't have those. It's pretty good, and we don't have those flashing ads keep popping up. But with the satellite map, what you're looking for is you're looking for depth contours. You're looking for areas, especially now we're in the wintertime when this is being filmed. Every season is different, of course. But we're looking for depth contours. We're looking for areas that have some deep water, also areas nearby that are shallow. So back here in these little pockets, right, you can see some deep water. Here in these canals with shallow flats all around. You see this one really deep pocket here in the back with a lot of good mangroves and stuff around. You can see, kind of come out here and you can see the channel coming in. Again, deep water with shallows around. So really like to find the deep pockets, just because in the wintertime for the cold snaps, that's where the fish need to go to be safe from the cold snaps, really to be comfortable. The shallow water overnight just gets zapped by the cold, and the deeper the water, the more it holds the heat from days prior, right? But then after a few days of warmth, right, if it's trending warm, then eventually those flats, after getting zapped by the sun, now in the middle of the day, they'll turn from the coolest overnight to the middle of the day. They're going to be the hottest bodies, the hottest points, and those fish will naturally gravitate up on the flats, which is some awesome sight fishing times. And so with just this map, right, just this map and the fact that we already know the tides and the weather, we know the sun's going to be out, it's going to start cold, it's going to get gradually warmer. We now know how those fish are most likely going to be moving, right? In the early morning, the water's going to be super low, so they're going to have to be, and it's cold, so they're going to have to be in those deep pockets. And then as the day progresses, the water's moving up, the sun's coming out, and so eventually those flats are going to warm up, and those fish will naturally shift up into the shallows, and that's going to be a really good time to pick them off via sight fishing, which is my personal favorite way to catch them. But it's just amazing, powerful, right? Like even if I'd never fished here before, what power this is just in this one quick look. and knowing the weather and the trends, you can basically put together a big game plan in 5-10 minutes. So like over time, that's eventually how long it's going to take. And for Insider Club members, is we do this literally every day, Monday through Friday. We show an example where we do a pre-trip plan ourselves. We go over the weather, we go over the feeding trends, and then we go over a map. We choose an area all across the Southeast, and then we'll go fish it, and then we'll show you what happened, right? We'll talk about what worked, what didn't work. And it's almost like the more practice, the better you'll get. And so that way you can get your own practice without having to spend the time doing it, right? It takes a lot of time to do this. Most people can fish once, twice, 3 times a month. And so with the Insider Club service is that you can see this every day, and you can just get better and better and better just from the convenience of your home. And you can consume it all in about like 10 to 15 minutes per trip.
Yep. And if you're just a guy or gal that can only fish once or twice or 3 times a year, you need this even more, right? I mean, anyone who's not fishing every day needs to maximize their time, right? We spend so much money on fishing, right? It's a big investment, regardless if you have a boat or not. I mean, kayaks are crazy expensive. Heck, waders are expensive right now. Rods, reels, everything's expensive. Why not maximize that time? Why not have the sharpest axe possible? Luke, let's talk about one other mistake, and that's in the 90-10. You briefly talked about it, but the 90-10 zone, if you don't know what that means, it's 90% of the feeding fish can usually be found in about 10% of any given area at any given time, based on what Luke talked about in step 1 and 2, right? And so even here, I mean, any given day in this little screen, if you're watching this, and if you're not, just imagine we got a little, well, I guess in this case it's being maps up, but we have a little area, and tomorrow, if we fish this area, we would probably find that 90% of the feeding fish are in 10% of any area. One of the best things to do, and this is the mistake that most people don't do, is to start eliminating. This is what you need to do: eliminate the areas you know right off the bat are not going to be good. It's so much easier when you start taking things off of the table. It lets you dial in to say, all right, if I know they're not going to be in all these spots, I'm left with this. And then you can really dial it down. I think people overwhelm themselves because they see this big, this is a big area. It looks small on a map. Well, it looks like we've only driven 3 inches, but it looks small on a map. But it's just, I mean, if you get here in a kayak, this is a really overwhelming area. Even that Moses Hole, I mean, it's big. I mean, you know, compared to what it looks like on the map. And the best thing you could possibly do is start eliminating areas that you know are going to be dead based on the tides, based on the weather, meaning the wind and the temperature, et cetera. So do you mind giving an example? Like, what would you do if you want to use this example, Luke, just to eliminate areas that, you know, and I know there's not going to be fish here, I wouldn't even waste my time.
Yeah, well, number one, I mean, obviously we're going to go by different times of the day because the fish move, right? The fish aren't. It's rare that the fish will sit in one spot throughout the day, especially throughout the year. And that's where a lot of people go wrong too. So number one, I'll rule out for multiple reasons, Tuberculosis Bay, just because I just don't want to be in Tuberculosis Bay. First, it has a terrible name, but most importantly is that it's very shallow. And so in this situation, right, every situation can be different. But in this situation, we know the water is going to be very low, and we know it's going to be cold. And so shallow, cold flats are not good to fish. Those fish overnight, they're usually going to push off the flats. And so we can go ahead and rule out Tuberculosis Bay. We can rule out the middle of the bays where there's really no structure. Even though like here, like even this big hole, there is a lot of deep water, but there's really no structure down there. There's not much grass. There aren't any islands. So I can basically rule out the middle here. There might be some trout you can pick off, but it's not a slam spot. You're not going to see like reds and snook out here. And so that's really this big mass of water. And so you can rule out the flats here, right? Shallow flats and the deep stuff with no structure. So that's basically the long story short. And so then what we want to focus on are the little pockets of deep water that do have flats nearby. So we can look down into these, to these little canals back here. You can zoom in. We can see that they're deep water. They have structure, right? It's deep water with trees and stuff around, and there's wind protection. So again, overnight, wind protection is a big thing in the wintertime because as the water churns, right, that has more surface to air interaction, which helps the cold air make the water colder faster. And then conversely, if it's flat calm out, there's just one layer, right? There's not as much surface area from air to water. And so the cold air can't impact the water quite as much. So that's the reasoning why. But long story short, we have a lot of wind protected deep water with structure. So these canals are an obvious choice. I actually fished here. I guess last week I was out, took the paddleboard, and guess where I started catching fish? Literally in the first few casts. I stopped right here on this point and I fished right here, and I plucked out of, there's obviously ladyfish were out of control, but even caught a flounder. But I was just catching fish, haven't been here in 3 years, and I was catching fish in the first 3 to 5 casts. And I could have sat here and caught as many ladyfish as I wanted to. They were being a nuisance. And then saw some snook and stuff too that I spooked out when I got stuck in a tree. So still sore about that, but I found the fish, right? That's always the biggest challenge in fishing, is just going out and finding the fish. And when you, again, just do a quick pre-trip plan, you can do that surprisingly effectively. And this is in that exact situation is what we, for insider members, we teach every Friday. We have the weekend game plan on just, hey, here's what the trends have been, here's what the weather is going to be doing, and here are the types of spots to look for. And this was like the textbook situation. So I basically just followed the game plan, and it put me on fish in the first 5 casts. And so when doing this, it is actually, I won't say it's impossible, but it's very tough to get skunked when you have a good plan that aligns with what the trending feeding action has been. So the trending on where the fish have been, as well as what lures they've been hitting, or what baits for that matter. When it's done properly, it's very rare that there's a skunk trip. So that's usually, a lot of people just go, hey, I just want to catch fish. I don't care what they are. I just don't want to get skunked. And this is the best way to do that. And it's good for catching quality fish too, because those, quality fish will be in the same types of spots.
Yep. So another question that comes up a lot is, how many different spots should I have ready in my pre-trip plan? Like how many plans should I have, right? Plan B or plan A was these little canals. Let's just say it wasn't good for whatever reason. How many plans do you have? You have a plan B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z, or do you just have 3 or 4 spots? What do you like to do when you pre-trip plan?
Yeah, I mean, I would say regardless of the season, at least 5 or 6, because fish move, right? A lot of times they're super predictable, but there's generally going to be a lot of good spots that they can be at, a lot of textbook spots that they can be at. And sometimes they prefer one over the other for a variety of reasons, a lot of which is just where the food is, right? They'll be moving. If they're in a good spot that has all the structure you're looking for and all the depth contours you're looking for, but there's no food, right? They're going to move and go find some food. Yep. And so very important is to have at least 5 spots, so that if the first one isn't great, then go to the next one, then go to the next one, then go to the next one. And again, if you have a good plan, it is very rare that all 5 of them will have nothing. If you do like what we used to do, where we would go just, all right, hey, we got this type of weather going on, or this tide, I should say, and we have some light bait. Hey, let's go to that spot that we caught those fish last year, right? And we'd only go with like one spot. And then worst case, right, I just remember being so upset. We go to our spot, especially if we were paddling, and it took us a long time to get there. And then you look around the corner and there's somebody in the spot that beat us. And it was just, I just remember being just so mad. Like, oh my gosh, these jerks stole our spot. But if you have 5 or 6 spots picked out and one of them's taken, oh well, just go to the next one, right? It's there's a million spots like that if you just take a little bit of time, you can find them. In many cases, I found some of my best spots by having to skip a spot because somebody else is in there. So go with multiple plans, go with multiple spots, and again, as long as they're chosen based on the tides, based on the weather, and based on the recent feeding trends like that we show every week, you're going to be catching some fish. And so, yeah, 5 spots. In the wintertime, I like to do a little bit more. So in the wintertime, the fish, they're tougher to find. It's not like the summer where they're really scattered around. And even if you don't have like the perfect spot, there's usually going to be a couple fish there. In the wintertime, there's going to be a lot of areas with no fish at all. But then when you find those honey holes, there's going to be a bunch of fish in a really small pocket, right? Like in here, it was basically every cast I was getting strikes, to the point where, again, most of them are ladyfish, but there's fish, right? There's feeding action. But then another one, right? I made some casts on this one. There's nothing. So it's, even though on the map they both look good, for what reason they were holding here. But the key is just to find the right type of situation and then get a half dozen of them, and mathematically you're gonna get some success with at least one, usually in multiple, usually in most. But then also, have a different type of spot. So say the weather was a little bit different than planned. It was a little bit warmer. The sun came out earlier, whatever. And those fish, instead of being in the deep stuff, they moved up in the shallows because they were actually comfortable, and they were up there to feed. And so in that case, I like to have some shallows picked out as well, like some shallow points, or just something unique. Where I like to find like a cove with oysters. Again, back in Tuberculosis Bay, I've never been here before, but back in this back pocket, it looks like a little creek that empties out. If the water was higher, this would be attractive, right? If there's like a deep trough in the year, that would be a pretty cool spot where like all the fish back up in here would have to hunker down in that creek at the low tide and then push up. If there's an oyster bar or something, that would be the stuff that I would like to point out here. Just for an example, what I'd look for is right here. You can see this little oyster bar. And so this is an oyster bar on a shallow zone. So there's really no deep water nearby. But if the fish were happier or at the higher tide when that sun's out, this would be a pretty good type of spot to note to go check out. And coincidentally, I saw some redfish on this bar when I was there last week. So again, it's just shocking how much information you can get from these maps, especially if you know the trends on what to look for based on the season, based on the weather. It really is a game changer. This has been by far the biggest boost to our fishing personally. And the good news is, it's like, as far as using the maps, it's totally free. And then our club, it comes down to, was it $8 a month or something for the annual plan? It's like, that's, we get the weekend game plans 4 times a month. So that's $2 per game plan to make sure that you're honing on the right spots. To me, it seems like an easy, hopefully an easy decision, especially comes with a 100% satisfaction guarantee.
It has been for 27,000 people and growing every single day. But yeah, it's like having a fishing guide in your back pocket. And I would also just comment too, in terms of a tip/mistake, is don't get married to any one spot just because your friend said it was good, or someone at the tackle store, oh, I caught fish here last week, or if you caught fish there last year. I mean, fishing with Luke, fishing with guys like Captain Peter Deeks a few times a year, they ain't never married to any spot, no matter what, no matter how good it should be or they think it should be. I've watched you and I watched Deeks. 15 minutes go by, there's no bites. If they're not any signs of life, adios, move on to that next spot, which is why it's critical to have multiple spots based on the pre-trip plan. And we did that with live bait, right? We just sit there and sometimes, and depending on the season, you're either baking or you're freezing out in that boat, and just like, oh man, we've been here 2 hours, we caught one catfish. It's usually time to move. And so I would say never be married to the spot. What else? Any other mistakes or secrets you can think of?
I'd say mistake is just spending too long in a dead zone, right? So again, no matter how textbook the spot looks, right? If you get there and after a little while, say I give it maybe 5-10 minutes. If I'm not at least seeing some bait fish, if I'm not seeing some feeding activity, if I'm not getting strikes, I'm gone. It's just not worth the time. And because if you are on that 90-10 zone, right, where at any given point in time, 90% of the fish are in 10% of the water. If you just get to that 90-10 spot, even if you don't have the perfect lure picked out or whatever, you're most likely still going to be at least getting some strikes or getting some action, or at least seeing the fish. And so I think a big mistake people make is they go to the first spot or to their only spot. Hopefully that's not the case, but like we did, we would get to our favorite spot and we'd sit there for 2+ hours and not catch anything and just be like, okay, they're going to get here sooner or later. And it's rare that happens. Fish do move, they don't move that fast. And so it's in many cases better to move to the fish than just hope that the fish move to you. Yep. It's different if you're out in the water every day and you know the exact patterns that the fish make, which there are patterns, absolutely. Yep. That's why guides are very effective. They're out there every day and they know the exact trends that they make. For most weekend warriors, just don't have that luxury. And so it's really about picking out a half dozen spots, go to the first one. If there's no signs of action, pick up, go quickly to the next one. Again, 5-10 minutes. If I see, if I get to a spot and I at least see that there's a lot of bait fish around, that birds are active, then I'll give it, even up to 30 minutes without getting any strikes, just to try to figure out where they are. But again, I hear for a lot of time for people who are going out for 6-7 hours and not catching much. And I'll be asking about like, hey, what types of spots did you go to? And like, yeah, I went to 3 spots. Like 3 spots in 6 hours without catching fish means that there wasn't a very good plan set at the beginning, because that should not happen. I rarely fish more than 3 hours, and if it's a slow day, I'll go through at least my 5 or 6 spots and then go to others on the way. Right? If I'm going from one spot to the other and see some birds or see something cool, go check it out. And when done properly, as Joe mentioned, don't get married to a spot. A lot of my worst days are going to the areas that I know the best, because I let that past history sink into my mind and impact my decisions. In many cases, a lot of the best times, like my most consistent trips, are when I go out and explore in areas I've never been to before, because I have no past history to mess up my decision making. It's all about the trends.
It forces you to pre-trip plan.
Yeah, it forced me to do the plan, of course, but it forces me to actually think more about, okay, why am I going here, right? And it's not just based on catching fish here last year. That's not a very good reason why. Okay, based on the weather, based on the tides, why am I going here? And if you can answer that odds are that's going to be a good spot. And again, your ability to answer that question is going to get better and better as you just have more reps in doing it. So a lot of it's just force yourself to do it. And then obviously it'll never be perfect, but you can learn from everyone, and over time you'll get better and better. And as we said, if you want to speed up that process, you can just look at our daily examples that we show, and then you can just see it happen. You can see the old process and just kind of just get better and better through our mistakes and through our successes as well.
Yep. And like I said, just going through that first course, that is a game changer. It will save you so much time, so much heartache that you can avoid, and you'll just become a more consistent angler. And I mean, one thing we know about you, because we already asked our insider members to leave a while back, is that you're a non-insider, and that means you are tenacious, because you're still with us. Because we also had that really crazy dead spot there for a while. Spooked me. So you're a tenacious person. We like tenacious people in our club. So this is our private invitation. Luke and I, it's just the 3 of us right here. You, me, and Luke. We're asking you to come join us. Private invitation in the Insider Club. And yeah, we have fun with it. We have fun in the club. The community is one of my favorite things to do. I start my morning off with some coffee, and I'm in the community every single morning, and then again in the afternoon. I'm learning. I mean, Luke's learning. We've got full-time guides in there who are learning from each other. Everyone's so positive. There's no cursing. There's no negativity. People are sharing. And as Luke said, we're going out and fishing new spots like this spot Luke just talked about. Our insider members get to see that whole report, and they get to see where he launched, where he caught the fish, where he missed the fish, what he caught fish on, what size jig heads, what depth. All that stuff is so critical to, over time, put those pieces of the puzzle together. It's a never-ending puzzle, right? Fishing just never gets solved, but it always helps when you have people behind you or next to you, a guide, if you will, an aid who can help you just fill in those gaps and give you those puzzle pieces. It's all about saving you time, right? And that was how the whole club started. Now it's about saving you time and money. We used to not even have tackle. Now we have crazy tackle discounts on everything from rods, reels, and line and lures and terminal tackle, et cetera. It's pretty stinking awesome. So we'd love for you to join us. This is a private invitation, and we'd love to you go to saltstrom.com. And you'll see a little place to join the Insider Club right there on the homepage. And we'd love to have you, as Luke said, that Smart Fishing Smart Fishing Tides is right in there. You can have full access to all that. Go through those 3 courses, and then, and only then, start really mapping out your next trip. And if you need help, we got fishing coaches who are in there 24/7 for the most part. And, someone will get back to you and help you out if you need a spot dissection or need some help on your next trip. We'd love to help you out. And we have people who post, even skunk days and say, hey guys, what did I do wrong? And there's nothing else like that, right, Luke? I mean, you post that kind of stuff on Facebook and you're going to get bashed. in our group, you get lifted up and people like, oh man, I've been there before. Don't worry. Here's what I would have done differently, or maybe try this next time. It's crazy how helpful it is. I pinch myself every time I'm in there, like, man, we have such a good crew. I mean, it is like a family. It's been really, really neat.
Yeah, it's amazing. The fact that you're here, still here, means that you're at least interested.
Tenacious.
And just to know, right, just for your comfort, is that we offer a crazy guarantee on this, right? So for the entire duration of your membership, so if you do the annual plan, you'll have the entire time to make sure you love it, and that's the best investment you've ever made in fishing. So it's a 100% satisfaction guarantee for the entire span of your membership. So if it's an annual plan, that's 365 days that you have full access to everything we just showed, plus a whole lot more. We have cheat sheets on everything you can think of as far as lure selection, depth control, the seasonality movements. It's just all there. And it's just, long story short, it's just what we wish we had when we were learning the ropes and struggling with saltwater fishing. We started out as good bass anglers, and for many years just totally struggled and fumbled around when we were trying to learn inshore saltwater. And then over time, as you start putting the pieces of the puzzle together, it got better, but it took us 10 plus years. So for you, this club just takes that learning curve down to weeks or months in some cases. And so that's why we have that guarantee. We know you're going to love it. The fact that you're still here means you have a desire to learn. And this club, especially those 3 courses, is by far the fastest way to go from wherever you are now to consistently predicting and finding the feeding fish, predicting where they're going to be and finding them, and then catching them as well. We go through the entire gamut, and we even go through, catching and cooking as well. So you can go from struggling to bringing home some nice fish fillets for your family when you want to.
Yep. So that's it. Go to saltspring.com and join today. We're looking forward to seeing you in there, and you could just say, hey, I really enjoyed our intimate 3-person conversation when you get in there. So I was that person that waited to the very, very end of this podcast episode. So guys, appreciate you big time. Stay tuned to the next episode. We will have a whole lot more great stuff coming. And for you insider members, we're cooking up some really cool stuff. Stay tuned. Appreciate you guys. Onward and upward. Tight lines. Adios. Pow!
See ya.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.